Hey guys, welcome back for another very exciting tutorial here at the PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com. My name is Jesus Ramirez and you can find me on Twitter at JRFromPTC. In this tutorial, we'll be creating this moonwalking scene using Photoshop CS6's 3D features. We'll start out by creating a few simple shapes to create the Earth and the moon's surface. Then we'll bring in a 3D model of an astronaut and a lunar lander. We'll then apply textures to the Earth and the Moon, as well as add reflections and shadows to the scene. And by the way, the 3D models and textures used in this tutorial were provided by NASA. NASA's website actually has a section where you can download 3D resources to use in Photoshop and in other 3D modeling applications. I have a direct link to all of the files used in this tutorial, but I'll quickly show you how to get into the 3D resources section in the NASA website so you can find other 3D objects and textures to use in your project. So to get to the NASA website, go to nasa.gov, that's G-O-V, then hover over Multimedia and click on 3D resources. In this section, you can download 3D models or images and textures. Let's look at the 3D models really quick. If you click on 3D models, you'll see a list of all the 3D models you can download to use in your projects. We will be using the Mark III spacesuit, and we'll also be using the Apollo lunar module, which is this one right here. And like I said, I have the direct links to these models, so you don't have to go through all these steps to find them. But once you click on the link, click on the download .3ds file in this case to download it into your computer, and then as you will see, you can import that into Photoshop. And as I said before, you also have images and textures, so let's click on the gallery here, and it's going to take us to a gallery of different textures. For example, we have Jupiter, Saturn, and a whole bunch of other different images you can use. So we're going to be using some images of Earth that I'll link to from the website. And before we get started with the tutorial, I just wanted to let you know that in order to save some time, I'm assuming that you've watched some of my other 3D tutorials, so I won't be covering some of the basics. If you get lost while watching this tutorial, I recommend watching some of my other tutorials first and then coming back into this one, okay? Anyway guys, let's get started with this tutorial. First, let's make sure that we're all on the same page by having the right panels, the right workspace. So go into Window, Workspace, make sure 3D is selected, and click on Reset 3D. Then we're going to create a new file, so I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to create a file that is 1280 by 720. Then I'm going to press OK. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mesh from preset, and that's going to be a sphere. Then I'm going to click on Create. I'm going to click on the sphere. I'm going to move it up to the side and maybe push it back a little bit. Maybe something like that. And I don't want the sphere to give off a shadow, so I'm going to click on Cast Shadows. And I'm going to click on that so it no longer gives off a shadow. And you know what? Maybe I'll push it up. I'm going to move that to the side for now. Maybe up here. Something like that. And I'm going to put this back here where it belongs. Okay. Then I'm going to create the ground plane for this image, which is the moon. And to do that, I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to fill this with 50% gray. So Shift and Backspace. And use 50% gray, as I said. And I'm going to, just to show you how this works, I'm going to create this rectangle here. I'm going to fill it with black. I'm going to move that and fill the second one with white. Then I'm going to go back into the 3D panel with this new layer selected, and I'm going to click on Mesh from Depth Map, Plane, click on Create. And that's going to create this 3D object here, which, as you can see, is flat, and it's got this indentation that goes down and this one that goes up. Well, that's because in our depth map here, we use black and white. So 50% gray keeps the 3D mesh flat, white raises it up, and black brings it down. So we're going to use this technique to create the moon's ground. And to do that, I'm going to go into the foreground color, and I'm going to change it to 51% gray, which is just 1% higher than 50%, obviously. And then for the background color, I'm going to do 1% lower, which is 49%. Then I'm going to go into filter and clouds. And you really can't notice it now, but there's some clouds going on in here. And if I go back into the 3D plane, you'll see that I created this plane here, and it's got some hills and valleys and stuff like that. The reason you see this white stripe and this black stripe is because it was applied to that depth map in the diffuse. It's going to bring me, let me close that actually. Press OK. And I'm going to delete it, of course, but I'm also going to fill it with gray. Like so. So whatever you apply as a depth map, it also applies it as a texture. Then I'm going to bring in the 3D models from the NASA website. So I'm going to click on 3D, new 3D layer from File. I'm going to select the mk2.obj, which is the astronaut. And when you bring in a new layer, a new 3D layer, it's not in the same 3D layer as all the other layers we've been working on. So let me just rename these. I'm going to name this one Earth. This one's the Moon. And I'll keep the MK3 under, that's fine. And I'm going to merge all of these into one 3D scene. So I'm going to press Ctrl E to merge all of them into one 3D scene. And if I click on the Move tool and click on the default view, this is what we have. So obviously the ground plane is too small, so we gotta scale that and make that much, much bigger. So I'm just gonna make that bigger like so. And maybe bring it down a little bit. Something like that. I'm gonna double click on that 3D layer, and I'm gonna click on the astronaut, the OBJ mesh, which is the astronaut. I'm gonna bring that closer to me, and I'll snap it down to the ground plane and see how far down it goes. As you can see, it didn't go down as far as I wanted. I needed to go further down, and the reason that happened is because with 3D objects that you bring from other platforms, things don't always work the way you expected them to. And actually, now that I'm here, I'm going to select the front view just to make sure that everything is in the right spot. So I'm going to swap those views, and I'm going to zoom in. And you know what? Let me move that. Actually, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just going to swap them back. Zoom out. I'm zooming out by holding Alt and the mouse wheel, by the way, and that's Option mouse wheel on the Mac. Anyway, I'm just going to rotate this astronaut by clicking on this arc handle here. Oops, sorry, I'm rotating the ground plane. Gotta click on the OBJ mesh from the MK3 and click on the Y-axis arc and rotate it the other way. There. And maybe I'll make him bigger. And maybe push him back just a little bit. And now I'm going to bring in the moon lander. So I'm going to go into 3D, new 3D from File. And I'm going to click on the lunar lander here. And this time it's a .3ds file, and Photoshop can work with those as well. So click on Open, and we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to merge that one back down with all the other layers. So I'm going to press Control E, Command E on the Mac to do that. I'm going to double click on the 3D layer here and find the lunar object here. And I'm going to move that into position. And by the way, if you can't move it to the right spot, always swap views with either the top or the front or left or right so you can get better views and drag it into position. So now I'm going to click on top. I'm going to swap it, and I'm just going to move that one over right next to the astronaut, and it looks like he's right there. It looks like he's right on it there, so I'm just going to move it to the right a little bit, and then I'm going to scale it. And I have to push it down too because it looks like he's floating. So I'll scale it in a moment. Also, the Earth is right on top of the moon plane, and that is not going to work. So I'm just going to grab that push it back and move it. I'm going to swap views again, and actually I'll move this one to this side. Push this up, and I'll scale it. Oops, sorry about that. Let me press Control Z. I was scaling it on one axis, not all axes at the same time. So scale uniformly. Make that much bigger. Maybe that big. And I'm going to move it over to the right and bring it down like so. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this lander a little bit bigger. I'm going to click on the lunar lander, and I'm going to scale uniformly and make this guy much bigger. Maybe about that big. And in reality, I don't know how big this thing really is, so I'm just estimating, and that might be a little too big, so I'm just going to make it smaller. And the astronaut is working on it or trying to fix it. I don't know. We can make up whatever story we want for this illustration, and I just gotta make sure the rover's actually standing on the ground plane. If I go too high, he's floating, and you can see the shadow right under the foot there. Or if I bring it down too far, it sinks into the moon. So I'm just gonna push it up right about there as soon as it's past the ground, like so. And I don't think I'm gonna need this at least for now, so I'm just gonna close it. And I'm going to press M on the keyboard to open up the marquee tool so I can hide all the other 3D tools, and everything's looking pretty good. I'm going to press Control S to save. It's a good idea to save a lot while you're working in 3D. Okay, now one of the things we have to fix right off the bat is the lighting in the scene. Every 3D scene has at least one light. In this case is the infinite light, which is the default. So I'm going to click on infinite light and press the V key on the keyboard to bring up this this icon here, this tool that we can click and drag to work with the lighting. If you don't see that, go into View, Show, 3D Lights. Anyway, Infinite Light, Move Tool, and you should see this this tool here that you can click and drag. And I want the sun, and this is sort of like the sun, so I want the sun to be on the right side here, like so. So we're going to get some shadows on the astronaut, which is going to be pretty cool. And the Earth here, so it's going to be morning time on the east and night time on the west. And I'm just going to do a quick render. I'm just going to click on the render button just to see how things are looking like so far. And I just want to see the shadows and what things are looking like. And yeah, things are looking pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do now is go back into the layers panel, add a new layer, bring that down, and I'm just going to call this layer space. And I'm going to fill this layer with black, so I'm going to press D on the keyboard for my default foreground background colors. Alt backspace as Option backspace on the Mac to fill with black. I'm going to create one more layer, and I'm going to call this layer stars. I'm going to create a star field, and I'll do that by pressing B on the keyboard to access the brush tool. And I'm going to make the brush about 3 pixels. I'm going to go into the brush presets here, and I'm going to make sure that shape dynamics is turned on, and I have size jitter to 80%, minimum diameter 50%, angle jitter 43, roundness jitter 31, and minimum roundness 25. I've also added scattering all the way up to 1000, and the count jitter to 100%. And I've also increased the spacing on my brush, and I get something that looks like what you see down here. And I'm just going to paint with white, and I'm just going to create some stars like so. And if I think I need more stars in other places, I'll add them like so. Okay, this is fine for now. What I'll do now is I'm just going to increase the brush size to maybe 9 and just create 1 or 2, just a few bigger stars, brighter stars, like so. And if I didn't like if there's something I don't like with the stars, I just can click on the eraser tool and just erase areas where I think I have too many stars. So something like that. This looks good. Then on this layer, I'm going to double click on it to bring up the layer style options. Click on outer glow, and I'm going to add a blue outer glow just to make them just a little more realistic. So if I hold Alt or Option on a Mac and use the mouse wheel, scroll up on the mouse wheel to zoom in, you'll see that outer glow on the stars there, like so. Okay, so that was it with working with 3D models and 3D shapes. What I'm going to do now is we're going to start working with textures. So I'm going to click on my 3D layer, and actually I'm just going to call this layer 3D scene because it's not really the Earth, it's just the whole 3D scene. And I'm going to double click on that, and let's work with the Earth first. So I'm going to click on the Earth layer and on the sphere material. The diffuse color for any 3D object is the actual color of that object. So if I change this to red, that turns into red or green or whatever color you want. There is a texture on it now, and you know because there's this icon here. If it didn't have any texture, you'll see this folder icon. So if I click on edit texture, it's just something that's blank. So if I were to make a selection and fill it with, I don't know, green for example, and I were to come back into the file here, you can kind of see the green there. Let me just move that over to this side so you can see it better. And there you go. So it now makes that part green and the other part whatever the diffuse color is. So if I were to change the diffuse color to red, it makes the other side red. I just wanted to show you that so you can get some ideas and maybe come up with some cool designs on your own. But anyway, I'm going to go back into the layer here and just delete every pixel. And I'm going to place a file that I have, which is Earth texture. Again, I got that from the NASA website. There's a link to it right under this video. So I'm going to click on place, and I'm just going to match that there like so. Then I'm going to, actually, let me close this since we won't be needing that map anymore. So as you can see, this is the Earth there. If I were to click on it, I can actually make it rotate. And it looks pretty cool. That's Africa and then North and South America. Pretty cool. And this is looking pretty good, but it's not looking too realistic because if we were really looking at the Earth from space, we would see some clouds, and there are no clouds here. So why don't we add some clouds? So I'm going to go to File, Place, and I have another image from NASA, which is just a picture of clouds from Earth. So they actually went ahead and removed everything but the clouds, which is going to work out great for us. So I'm just going to match that there, press Enter. And I'm going to change the blending mode to screen. That way, everything that's black becomes transparent, which is going to make this image look great. So if I come back into the Earth scene, you'll see the clouds there, and the Earth is looking much, much more realistic. Now, the sun is coming in from the right. So let me just rotate this a little bit so we can have some fun here. Let me find the right tool. Here we go. We're going to rotate that down a little bit and rotate it this way. So if the sun is coming in from the right side, it's hitting Africa and Europe, so that's daytime. So we need it to be nighttime in the Americas. So what we're going to do is we're going to add one more file. So I'm going to go to File, Place, and click on Earth Night, which is another texture provided by NASA, which is essentially the Earth at nighttime with no clouds. And press Enter. So if I were to bring that down, and actually, you know what? This clouds texture is too strong, so I'm going to bring that down to 75%. Or maybe even more, maybe 70%, something like that. So if I come back into the Earth texture, you'll see now that there are lights here in the United States and in Brazil. But this part is daytime, so we don't need lights on this side. So what I can do is I can create a selection of just North and South America, apply a layer mask, click on the layer mask, click on mask edge, and just feather it like so. It's a nice transition there. I'll press OK. I'll come back into the 3D scene. So now it's daytime in Africa, Europe, and nighttime in the United States and South America, as you can see. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see that better. So you can see the lights here and there. It just makes things a little more realistic. Okay, so now that we're done with the Earth, let's work on the astronaut. Let me zoom into him so we could see him better. And I'm holding the spacebar to get the hand tool and place him right in the middle. So I'm going to double click on the 3D layer and I'm going to press the V key on the keyboard. And this astronaut, the MK3 3D layer, has all these different 3D meshes. And notice that when I click on them, different parts of his body are selected. That means that this particular mesh controls, for example, the shoes. So if I click on diffuse, go to red, I can give him red shoes if I want to. And I can obviously apply an image that would wrap around his shoes, so I can make him look like he's wearing, sneakers or, some Nikes or something. But anyway, the one that I'm looking for now is the very top one, which is his helmet, and it's the face mask. And I want it to be reflecting the environment around it. So once I have that selected, I'm going to click on reflection, and I'm going to bump that all the way up to 80%, like so. If I press on the M key for the marquee tool, make a selection just around his head, I can click on the render button and it's going to render just that section, and you'll see that his helmet is now reflecting his arm and it's reflecting the surface and part of the rover. So that makes it much more realistic. So that's a pretty cool feature that Photoshop 3D has, that it can interact with the objects around it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just apply a few more reflections to some items. So I'm going to press the V key, and in the rover I can actually click on different sections of the rover, and if I wanted to I can move them away, but I'm not going to. You feel free to do that with your composition if you like, but I'm just going to select areas that I think will be a little more reflective. So maybe this area here. So once I have it selected, I can scroll down and find it. It'll be highlighted, and there it is. So I can click on these two items here and increase the reflection to 50%, and I'll do that here for this one as well, like so. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this bottom part here could be reflective too. So let me find that, and I'll also bump that up to 50%, like so. Okay, so now I'm going to press the M key on the keyboard again, and I'm just going to make a selection here and render it just to see what everything's looking like. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and deselect that, and yeah, things are looking pretty good. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to create some texture for the ground plane. So I have to find that, which is the moon layer here. It's obviously a depth map, but I still have a diffuse color, so we can change the diffuse to a different color if we wanted to, but it's not doing anything because we have a texture for that. So let me open that up, and what I can do is I can apply an action here that I think would work. So let me go into Window, Actions, and under Textures, and by the way, if you don't have that, you can just click on the flyout menu here and click on Textures, and you'll have these textures here. And if you click on Cold Lava, press play, it's going to create this texture for us automatically, as you saw. And now I can just bring down the opacity and come back into the earth layer and see how it's affected. So now, as you saw, it gave it some texture. So let me add just a little bit more, like so. I can also make a copy of this, pressing Control A, then going into Edit, Copy, Merge, and let me just close this since I won't be needing this for now. And I can come into the bump map, create a new texture, press OK, and edit the texture. I can then paste that onto there, and if I come back, you'll see that now I have a rougher surface. And the way the bump map works is similar to the depth map. 50% gray is flat, anything that's white races up, and anything that is black races down. But unlike the depth map, it's only sort of like a visual effect. It really doesn't alter the geometry. It just gives you the illusion of depth. So this is what we're doing here. and we can bring the bump down, or we can bring it way up. So I'll keep it low. Let me find a good spot. Maybe 9%. Let's do a quick render and see what that looks like. I wasn't expecting the shadow to be there, so let me just render the entire ground plane just so I can get a better sense of it. Okay, I think this is gonna work. The ground is looking much more realistic now. The only issue I'm having is I think I need to extrude out the ground plane, just extrude it out just a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna open that, and I'm gonna click on the depth map here, and maybe I can just push it back and that'll work. Yeah, pushing it back might work. And I'm just gonna select the marquee tool and just do a quick render of the entire scene just to see how things are looking. Okay, the only thing I'm noticing now is that the shadows might be just a little too rough. I just want to soften them up just a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to click on the infinite light, and I'm just going to increase the softness just a little bit, maybe 5%. We'll see what that looks like. I'll go ahead and render that area again. Yeah, so as you can see, the shadows are just a little bit softer now, so I think I like them this way better now. So yeah, I definitely like the shadows softer, so I'm just going to leave them like that. And what I can do now is, now that I got everything set up, maybe I can make some changes, and I sort of want the astronaut to be a little bit bigger, so let's scale him up. Maybe scale him up about this height here, like so. And I'm going to click on the lunar lander as well. I'm going to have to zoom out for that because for some reason the cage is this big rectangle, and it's just the way things work when you bring in other images from other programs. You know, Photoshop doesn't always do a good job of keeping cages and things together, but you can work around that. It's not a big deal. I'm going to push it up a little bit. And I'm going to grab my astronaut here, and I'm thinking I'm going to put him sort of behind the lander there and make him taller, so maybe the lander is not as big as we thought. Actually, push him back even further. Let me zoom in and see if I like that. I actually liked it better when he was closer to us, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him back. I don't like him being that far away from us. So maybe right there. I'll do a quick render just to see how things are looking. And yeah, this is looking pretty good. So we still get a reflection of the lander, we get a reflection of his arm, shadows are casting over his body from the lander, sun's obviously on this side. So things are looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go back into the layers panel, and I don't really think this image needs it, but I'm going to show you some things you can do. Once you finish working with your 3D objects, you can always create adjustment layers. So for example, the Earth might be a little desaturated, so I can saturate the image and just make a selection around the Earth. Fill that with black to hide everything. So now the Earth is saturated and it's not affecting the astronaut or the lander. But anyway, so you can go ahead and keep adding layers, or you can download more 3D objects from NASA. Totally up to you. And you know what? Now that I'm here, one thing that I'm noticing is these orange things here on the rover. I think they should be reflective. So let me see if I can find it. Is that one right there? Yeah, is that one right there? So let me select it again. Oops, sorry about that. Those things need to be reflective. So let me add a lot of reflection to that. Let me find the other one, which is right there, and I'll add a whole bunch of reflection to that as well. So I just caught that actually when I was practicing for the tutorial. I didn't really notice them till now. But anyway, so I added reflection to that as well. So I don't know how much more realistic it'll make it, but it can't hurt. And yeah, it's actually reflecting part of the rover there, so that's looking pretty cool. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to share this tutorial on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or wherever you like to share your stuff. Also, remember to check out my website, photoshoptrainingchannel.com, where you can sign up for my free newsletter, where I'll send you an email every time I put up a new tutorial, and where you'll get access to my subscriber-only tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again next time.